just from him.
Yep, for sure. And we'll have to see if they can continue in game 2 now. Of course, as we expected, we see Form Rage coming out once again on that kitty cat with the deadly, ferocious bites that we've seen already. Oxygen and Yosuke, of course, backing him up in this game, going up against the exact same composition from Unitas on the other side of the screen now. Of course, you do lose something when you play without the Retribution Paladin. You lose those pops, you lose those Blessing of Sanctuaries. Do you think Primes is going to be able to exploit that a little bit more against the jungle?
I don't exactly think so. I feel like they honestly don't get too much use in that matchup. I feel like the Red Paladin's utility really just doesn't get to be there in this kind of matchup. He gets controlled too much for them to actually be as useful as the Feral Druid would be able to by having multiple stuns and those actual physical stuns that can't be, dispelled by an imp. I think that those can offer more peels and help save you way more than one Blessing of Protection every 2 minutes will. So I think that kind of works out a little bit better.
Yeah, it's definitely looking so good so far for Poon, who's actually landed a fair few care spots. We saw the Repentance there over onto Oxygen, who was able to sit through that, not trade out too many defensive cooldowns, although some minor ones, such as his Archangel, already committed. We see Yosuke now popping his offensives. He wants to get aggressive with the main shot. He's had enough of this tournament. He wants to get through, kill Poon in this moment of time. And Unix, he's just being so frustrating for him. He's just avoiding the CC, doesn't even have to trade out his Blessing of Sacrifice, and just keeping Poon alive, who now gets another fear onto Oxygen, so ready to set up another offensive push.
Yeah, they're getting a lot of damage in this scenario. I mean, they're trying to keep up that momentum. The ideal situation for this jungle is they need to have a little bit of a longer game, but still maintain that momentum, because with Holy Paladins, they have so many defensive cooldowns. You want to run through all of their buffs and their sacks, so you don't want to really close out that game too early. And I think they're doing a really good job trying to maintain that pressure. And I kind of like the strategy of them using the scatter shot, although I would maybe argue that maybe it's not even worth for him to do that, and he could just have the bursting shot, because it's kind of hard for Oxygen to get the fear. He could play the bursting shot, and then for their traps, they could just try to cover it with either a root from the Feral Druid, or they could just have the priest try to fear the Windwalker Monk or something similar to that, and then Yasuo go for a Wyvern instead to kind of cover those CCs.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a few interesting talent choices, but we do see, I mean, the scatter shot is definitely providing some range utility, but honestly, it's also giving a big beacon to Primes. Every single time he sees that scatter shot, he runs over to Unix, does his best to deny any follow-up crowd control. We see Poon in the middle of the map just PvEing, but looking at the mana pools, definitely pretty even. Both these healers thanks to a fair bit of work. Unix trinkets out, trades out the Blessing of Protection on the high damage coming in from this jungle cleave at this moment in time. Prime's getting caught up in the fear, like you were saying, Dill, just getting those fears out where you can, even if you can't cross the map to get to Unix. But Oxygen definitely losing out on mana here, struggling a little bit, doesn't have his PvP trinket either. And honestly, it's still looking quite bad for the side of Mad Dog here. Yosuke doesn't have his aspect of the turtle. They're trying to get a swap over to him here. There's the Seduce, fair bit of damage coming out. Dark Soul coming out of Poon, who's getting a fair bit off here. They're unable to stop that. Pain suppression comes out from Oxygen to keep his hunter alive, but once again, scary push, and Mad Dog's barely keeping the game going.
Yep, exactly. And also, one thing to notice with the mana, because of how that last game went, I think Oxygen, he opted, instead of going the Trinity Castigation route with Strength of Soul that Disc Priest usually will play for these long drawn out games, they're getting a lot of crowd control with these Repentances and these Fears, so Oxygen actually opted into playing with that Premonition talent, but also he's playing the Ultimate Radiance to have some instant heals to try to top his team off instead of having those. So this is putting their team on a little bit of a timer. They need to end the game a little bit earlier, just because there's that extra, little bit of mana that's going to be wasted, and they're not going to have as much efficiency on that end. So that's a little bit of a risk with their strategy in order to keep them safe to be that offensive. So if they don't end the game kind of quickly, I think that strategy is going to hurt them a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's something we've seen, and actually there was another beautiful crowd control train coming out that we saw Unix pushing in, getting the Hammer of Justice into the fear, coils galore as well from Poon. This team just working so well together offensively, and you can see Prime's now backing off, raving for his next offensive onslaught, trying to keep Poon up as well at the same time. And I mean, it's just a game that's working really well, like you were saying, Dill. They've got great strategies coming in right now, but mana is definitely a factor for both teams. Both of them dropping quite low on it. Unix also doesn't have too many defensive cooldowns left. He does have
he only has
shield immunity, but no
there's only
no blessing protections.
No, he has one sack left. No bops though, and only bubble. But they have the wall, from Poon right here. But I actually think this is going to start to get really scary for because I think the Paladin actually will fall a little bit more behind than Oxygen will.
Form Rage doesn't die first.
Yeah, exactly.
Oxygen's actually completely in as well. He dropped out of mana first, which is surprising to me, considering how much damage the jungle cleave can do. This is his Archangel, which is of course a big healing cooldown, but after that's over, he's really going to struggle to top his team here.
I think it's because he's playing that Radiance. So the Radiance isn't as mana efficient, right? So he's having to use that, and he's using those more to try to stay a little bit more offensive and try to force more pressure. But I think if they just decide to play back a little bit more, they can do well with him just using some more atonement healing, and he could try to be a little bit more mana conservative. But at this point, they fell so far behind. Form Rage might decide full Hodge. I mean, he has the human racial. He's trying to keep him up. They have the full rep. He gets the death off, though. He gets the death off, though, so he's going to be able to stay him. But no, there's that DR life sweep, and that's going to kill Form Rage. There's no way. He has that last wall, trying to do what he can to survive. They have a barrier available. I mean, they're trying to line of sight, and they are going to be able to top him just barely without even using that radiance. They're trying to do what they can to recover. Form Rage has that. He has that wall just fading right now, but I don't know how they are going to survive right now. There's that full incap right there. They need some counter pressure in order to survive here, and they get another death from Oxygen on these Serpentis. He's really doing a great job trying to avoid these CCs, but that's going to be it. Form Rage is still low right now. I think that's going to be the game.
I wanted to believe in the jungle clear. I mean, Oxygen was doing everything he can to keep his team alive. He premonitioned both those last two Repentages, but at the end of the day, it was just so much damage, and I mean, unrelenting pressure, quite frankly, from Poon and Primes. And these guys, the Primes especially, showing why he was able to make it to the finals last time around. And honestly, we discussed this at the start of the series. We said that the Windwalker Destro might be the composition today, just because even though it's not reliable into jungle cleave, it's one where you have those win conditions, right? Like you have the damage to finish the game, but it's not easy. And they're making it look much better than it is, really. They're just playing this game so well. And PoonXO, who is someone that we were talking about, we haven't seen this player so much since, like, I mean, Cataclysm days, like years and years ago. He's coming back and he's making an impact on this stage, and he's doing so well. One game away from putting his team into the top 3.
Yeah, no, really, really great job from them. I'm actually surprised that they were able to take this match. I mean, I would honestly put it in the favor of their jungle, but I think that this is a good opportunity for them. Still, it's their first cup. They haven't played with Form Rage before. You know, that Red Hunter has played together a lot, so I think they're really more comfortable with that. And their jungle cleave, I think they've been giving it more practice because they haven't played it much together, right? And you know they want to get more and more practice together. And I think that this will be a good opportunity for them to probably improve for the future tournaments that they have up against this team, because I think that they can win. I mean, I honestly think that they have the potential to turn the entire series around. And I think
I think so too. I mean, I never want to count out a jungle cleave. I mean, even your team, right? Like in that NA Cup, like you were 2-0 down in some series, and you can't ever count out a jungle cleave. Like you're going to keep adapting, and if you find a strategy, all planned, exactly calculated. If you find a strategy that works, it's very hard to counter it sometimes. But I mean, obviously, you'd rather be 2-0 up. I think it's fair to say Unitas looking very strong in this one. And I mean, if Unitas wins this, they're going to actually play against a team they haven't played against yet, right? They haven't actually met the team of Unhandsome Men, I believe it's called. I don't know, these names are fantastic, as I was already saying, but they haven't actually played that matchup, and I think it's one that they can definitely win. So they're really hungry for that, and all they have to do is win one more game against the number 1 seed, and then they will be in position to do that. So definitely looking strong for them. But if you're Gronks, by the way, you're just sitting in the upper bracket, like chilling, thinking, well, I mean, like, it's great to see these guys. I've already beaten all of them. But I would be scared if Unitas can't find their form, because they were pretty strong last year.
I mean, this again, I think this is a series that's coming down to experience. Unitas Gold, more experience together, and they're doing better in this matchup because I think they have more experience together than Mad Dog does. I think that's what it comes down to. I again think that Mad Dog definitely can win this series as jungle. Especially in this matchup. I think sometimes that's something that will happen with jungle teams in general, is that I guess if you're fighting certain compositions that you're not really familiar with fighting, they can be difficult just because you might have to play it slightly different than other matchups, especially as far as it comes to just surviving. But, you know, once you play, I mean, most of the time jungle is going to be really good into lots of things. I think that's pretty obvious to most people at this point. Jungle's pretty good, right? So.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. It's like, I mean, one of the great things, and of course, if you guys are tuning in right now, like definitely tune into the European Cup tomorrow, which is playing out. I believe it's 6 p.m. CEST is the start time of that, so that's 9 a.m. Western time. for America. So that's going to be something that you'll be wanting to watch out for. And that's, of course, defending champions Reformed are playing in that one. They made it through to the top 6 of that broadcast. So that'll be one to watch. But here you see another jungle cleave that you got to give a lot of respect to them. Like you're saying, Dill, these guys are multiple rank 1s on the ladder. They're about as experienced as you can get in game. And then some of them even like Yosk and sorry, I forget the priest's name on the team.
Oxygen?
Oxygen, exactly. Like some of these guys, like they have played at the live events, like for North America and for the Asia Pacific region. So they have that experience, and for them to be losing in a matchup like this, it really pays. Like it shows how good their opposition are, right? Like the fact that Unitas, they come back as a defending BlizzCon competitor. They really want to make that spot again for Asia Pacific, and they're fighting hard for it right now.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
they're actually swapping out the comps.
I only have my slight. Oh, did they?
Yeah, they actually bring out Yosk on the Warrior, which is another thing we considered. So they're going to be playing Red Warrior Discipline Priest on Mad Dogs.
Yeah, I actually like that pick. No, I like the pick. Honestly, I think it's not a bad pick for them by any means. I
Definitely
think
those classes are a bit more tanky, right? It's going to be harder for Unitas to get the kill against them.
Yeah, I think that's a smart pick for them, especially just because, like we said, they might not just be as comfortable with the jungle yet into that matchup, especially against the Destrelok. And I mean, this is a great pick into it, and I think just being able to be versatile and comfortable enough to swap to that Ret Warrior, because we've seen Yas play this comp before. He used to play it all the time to carry Casca in the previous.
To play with Casca. What's your word?
Nope. Oh, sorry, Coach Casca. Oh no.
Flame. Oh no, they have a serious talking to at the end of this broadcast. But we are into the final potential game, and since Sid is not here, I will be saying this could potentially be the final rest of the place.
Why is it always on this map? Is it intentional?
It's a tombstone in the middle, you know?
Yeah, no, but it is always that map that it happens
they always
to
pick
be.
this one, right? It's funny how, but
yeah.
Slothstorm, of course, is Yosuke on that Warrior. Maxi, still the same Ret Paladin. We haven't changed anything up. Donnie, of course, same Discipline Priest, but on the other side, we've got that all but formidable Unix, Poon, and Primes, who are primed, honestly, to take this series and take themselves into that top 3.
I think the Warrior is a good pick just for really shutting down that Destrelok, because we saw it was Warbanner, by the way, right? That was yeah. He was able to really shut down the Destrelok really well. And I think Yas has had a lot of experience on his Warrior. He's played this composition a lot with Resto Shaman, but with this Priest, I mean, it's not going to be that much different, I don't think. So I think they can get a lot of offensive pressure onto them, and that can make it so that Destrelok really doesn't become a problem for the Disc Priest. And if I actually check, I think Oxygen might be opting to be playing this more mana efficient talents this game. He is going to be playing Strength of Soul this time and that Castigation. Now playing that Trinity just to have that Premonition, but I think this time he will be able to out-mana the Paladin here, and I think that was kind of their goal with their last game strategy. So I think that's probably going to be a better window for them to pursue.
Yeah, I definitely think it makes a lot of sense. Like, they're going to be playing for the long game here. They're not going to get a quick kill, especially against the Holy Paladin, but they are generating a lot of pressure early on. If they can connect to Poon, of course, Primes needs to chase after them, which means that the Ret Paladin will be able to cleave essentially both of them, making it so much harder for Unix. Because, I mean, Holy Paladins, definitely one of their weaknesses is they don't do that much spread healing between the two classes, so he will struggle, especially in the longer game, whereas Donny C can just sit back, Oxygen on that Discipline Priest, get out the efficient heals and not really be challenged in this matchup. So on the flip side, you got to wonder, how do Primes and Poon counter that? Do you think they should be
have a lot of damage?
Priest,
they actually might be able
or
to
do you think they can just tunnel the Ret, because they might be forcing the bubble right now?
Well, they're going to be able to hold on to it. They have the PS and the Rapture. I actually think it's really important that they're able to hold on to that bubble right there, because I think if they force that bubble, that would have been really, really devastating for them. But I mean, this actually looks kind of rough for the Ret Warrior right now.
Yeah,
I think the Disc Priest has a hard time
healing as well as you might have thought, right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The Disc is, he's got the cleave healing, that's fine, but the single target damage coming out onto that Ret Paladin is really struggling for him, and you can even see on the mana bar, it's down to about 60% already.
Yeah,
once that mana bar runs out, it's going to be really hard to heal. Poon taking a fair bit of damage, but they haven't forced anything really significant yet. One Hand of Sacrifice is easily going to come back out for Unix. He uses the Hammer of Justice there. Was actually a dispelled or trinket. It looks like he used the Human Racial on that one, so maybe
no, he had it. He's playing him.
Are you sure?
Yep.
Yeah, but also the human ratio was used, I think, so maybe a slight mistake there.
Oh, is it? Yeah.
Poon, regardless, taking a fair bit of damage right now. They might have to use
He's
the
getting
hand
chunked out.
protection. Dropping low. I'm not sure. That must have been the second sacrifice used there.
Was it? Did he use that, or I thought he didn't use it. I think
He
they just
stopped
got
taking
crazy.
damage.
Yeah. You're right. He used that. I think it's harder to tell because the counter looks like a 0 and it looks like a 1. He has a wings up right now, so I think he's going to be able to top him off right now. They have a full Hodge on Team He gets an immediate dispel on that, so that's really, really good for them. But I mean, yeah, I think like you said, I actually was probably wrong. It doesn't seem to look as favorable.
That was a lot of damage. And it's not Chaos Sports coming. He premonitions the Repentance. Good play once again from Oxygen, but he's running out of oxygen, to be honest. Like, his team really, really struggling in this game. And once again, good news. Hold on to that Divine Shield. That's what they really need to keep doing, because Divine Shield at the end of the day is the big defensive cooldown. You will not die through that, especially
Exactly.
on the other side. But on the flip side, I mean, mana pretty even. That's definitely a good thing for them. Unix actually dropping a fair bit. He's using a lot of healing cooldowns, but he still has his Hand of Sacrifice, does 2 Blessing of Protections. So he's got the tools to keep his team alive. And Blessing of Protection serves 2 purposes in this match.
Poon's getting chunked really, really hard right now, though.
It'll give him the opportunity to freecast Chaos Sports, right? And that's something that could be huge at some point in this game.
Yeah, and I think we missed it. Yosk actually reflected a coil right there, so he's pulling a play from Warzone, by the way. I always think it's cool when you see a warrior get a reflect on a coil and you get it back in the Warlock, and that's like the worst nightmare, right? If you actually reflect that coil, that ruins an entire go for them, but also makes it so you get set up onto when you have a warrior on you, so that is just not a favorable position to be in.
Yeah, you definitely don't have your coil recoiled. That's something that is not going to work out well for you on the Destruction Warlock. Poon dropping low though.
Oh, he's getting
Shield! Blessing of Protection wasn't actually used. We see another Hand of Sacrifice from Unix. Definitely the last one there though. But now, actually, one of the things that did work really well, which we've talked about a lot for Unix, is he actually sat down for another drink there. He's able to get a fair bit of mana. So honestly, I think that's worth it. Like, you trade out 1 Hand of Sacrifice, but you now have a big mana lead. Defensive cooldowns, you still got a fair few. You got the Trinket, got the Wall on Poon, you got the Blessing of Protections. Got a few things here to keep you alive. We see the Seduce, beautiful premonition there coming out of Oxygen. Excellent play from him. He really had to make that play there.
Yeah, he's been doing a great job with these premonitions, avoiding these CC. And honestly, what I think has been good with Unix is that he's making sure that he's always able to rotate those stacks instead of the Hand of Protection. I think holding on to those as long as possible is better, just because 1, the priest can dispel the Hand of Protection. 2, the Hand of Protection cooldown is a lot longer than those sack cooldowns, because the sack cooldowns 1 charge every 2 minutes, right? So with 2 of those charges, you can basically use a charge every minute, along with the Warlock Wall every minute, and that can be a really smooth rotation and helping you survive for a very long time. So if they're able to kind of just keep themselves safe that way, that's how they're going to be able to really last a long time, because if they just opt in to use that Hand of Protection, either the Wreck could kill through with magic damage, the Priest can keep doing magic damage, or just, he instantly gets a purge off on it. So Unix making sure to be greedy enough to get those stacks off in time has been great play from him. And also we've seen, both of these sealers are doing a great job. Oxygen just getting amazing deaths so far.
Yeah, I mean, one of the other things you have to bear in mind about Hand of Sacrifice, of course, is it can be used offensively. You can use it to freecast those Chaos Bolts, and maybe later in the game when they do get closer to the win, that's going to be what they're looking for. But we see once again the incap over onto Oxygen, Repentance, DR, follow that up. This should be the Divine Shield. There's no way he holds it. Divine Shield is now forced. Now, let's look at the situation. No Trinket on Oxygen. Divine Shield already forced, and they still have one of those Blessing of Protections. If they can get the clean setup, Poon could be free casting some big bolts into this Ret Paladin. This is game 3, potentially the last one of the series. Unitas poised to win it and advance to that top 3.
Yeah, another reflected coil right there from Yosk. He's really trying hard to keep himself in this game. And they get a beautiful Seduce on Yosk with a Fear onto Oxygen. That forces him to use the Trinket right there. Now they have a bot being used from Fresh, trying to keep himself safe as possible. But this is really scary. And I think that last window was really, really critical from Unix. He actually used the bot really to get that big Chaos Bolt right onto Yosk to force the bubble. So that was a smart play. I like him using that offensively there. Yeah, things are actually just starting to get really, really scary though for Poon at this point, because Unix has so little mana at this point that with us being at about 10% damping, it's going to be super hard for him to actually start healing through this. Now they have that full Storm Bolt during that Fear. Unix really has to struggle to keep him alive. He doesn't have a sacrifice left. He has 1 Hand of Protection, but he really wants to just keep using that Wings and try to not have to use any of his major hand cooldowns.
Oh,
yep, that is.
Oh no, Fresh is a little too fresh in that one, and I mean, that was a crazy game. Like, you really saw both the teams playing to their win conditions. Mad Dog,
Yeah.
they were really trying to play down the mana bar. You saw them even hitting Unix at the end of that one, but they left Poon 2-free, and Poon was able to basically annihilate the Retribution Paladin. He got a couple of care spots off in that last go, and that was what we talked about, right? Like, once you force that Divine Shield, suddenly the Retribution Paladin in the middle of the map is so vulnerable, especially to a Windwalker and a Destruction Warlock. And Unitas Gold will be the team advancing to that top 3. They knock out the #1 seed Mad Dog, and now they're poised to go up into that upper bracket. I mean, they've got their eyes on Gronks, right? Like, they want to make it all the way to that grand final, but they're going to have to go through one more big team in the lower bracket, and that's, of course, Unhandsome Men, who've already proven to be such a strong team. And I mean, Mad Dogs, I'm super happy to see them play. Yosuke, of course, huge name, huge credit to him. He had a great tournament, bringing out the Warrior, showing his versatility, but they will be, I imagine, unhappy with that 4th place. They'll be coming back in future cups. We'll have to see how they perform, but now it's going to be our top 3 teams, Unhandsome Men, Unitas Gold, and of course, Gronks, looking in that upper bracket to see who they will be fighting in the final series of the day.
Unhandsome Men goes up against Gronks, correct? So that's it.
So Unhandsome Men versus Unitas is the next game, since Gronks already beat in the upper bracket. So the winner will play against Gronks.
All right, cool. I mean,
this is all the coconuts, so to speak, or all the koalas. I think. A little bit more topical for the region. This is the game for all the koalas, all the pouches. We have to see if Mad Dog versus Unitas. I mean, of course, Mad Dog locked out Unitas Gold, going up against Unhandsome Men. And let's talk a little bit about this matchup, since, of course, we're probably going to give the teams a couple of minutes to get ready, Unitas Gold having just come off that series. So we know Unitas Gold very well by this point. I think we've seen them 3 series now. We've seen 3 of their series, so we've been watching them closely. They've been running these 2 compositions religiously, the Windwalker Death Knight, and more prominently the Windwalker with that Destruction Warlock. But Unhandsome Men definitely caught us off guard a little bit in this tournament. They beat Mad Dog, of course, in the upper bracket. That's why Mad Dog were in that situation in the first place. And they had a pretty okay series against Gronks, running that Turbo Cleave, but also the Enhancement Windwalker. So looking at these 2 cleaves playing against each other, what do you expect to come out on top, like looking at the compositions?
Man, it's actually so difficult to say at this point, because I feel like
I think so too.
There's been so many, like, I don't know if upsets is the right word. I mean, not necessarily upsets, but there's just been a lot of unpredictable things happening from both series.